Hello and welcome to the Irish Media Network. I'm Mariana Hurley, and today it's pretty sunny outside with a high of 63 and a low of 44. Unfortunately, for the rest of the week, it's going to be highs in the lower 50s and lows in the lower 40s as we see the fall weather come through. Now let's head inside with Lizzie and Morgan.
Hello, my name is Lissay Badeau, and alongside me is Morgan Phillips. We've got a lot of interesting stories to cover today. Morgan, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, first, we've got a super fun story on over 5,000 American military veterans carrying American flags across their cities.
We're also going to catch you up on Monday Night Football with the New Orleans Saints versus the Seattle Seahawks game.
And also unfortunate news on new tuskless elephants in Mozambique.
We've got all this and more coming up right after this break. More than 5,000 U.S. military veterans are carrying American flags across their cities. Nathan Smith, a U.S. National Guard veteran, carried an American flag 18 miles across Knoxville, Tennessee yesterday to show his love for this wonderful country. He started walking at 7 a.m. and walked all the way till dawn. He walked from Old Knoxville Highway all the way to Maryville Pike. The walk started off a little rainy and very cold, but that was not going to stop him from supporting his country. Smith decided to wear a vest that weighed 40 pounds during his walk as well, because he wanted it to be a physical walk. Smith said he decided to do this challenge for the people who lost their lives on 9/11. Smith frequently gives back to other veterans who have served this country. Although by 18 miles Smith was exhausted, he said it was a fun experience and is grateful for the community of Knoxville being so supportive of him. Now, Marinara, what's going on with the Volunteers?
On Saturday, the Tennessee Volunteers matched up against Alabama Crimson Tide for the 104th time. This was the most watched game of college football so far this year. Tennessee started the game off well and kept the Tide on their toes until the fourth quarter. Alabama took over and scored 28 points, and the Crimson Tide won the game 50-24. This was the first time the Vols have scored more than 21 points since 2000. The game was played in Bryant-Denny Stadium at the University of Alabama in front of more than 100,000 fans. There was an average of 4.7 million people, which makes it not only the most viewed game of the weekend, but also of the year. It was also the most watched rivalry game in Alabama since 2016. ESPN Press said that the ESPN networks were responsible for the watch of Week 8. The Tennessee-Alabama game generated most of that traffic, and the Vols get a much needed week off as they prepare to travel Lexington to take on Kentucky Wildcats this Saturday. Now, let's go on to Lizzie to talk about updates about the Lion Brian Laundrie.
Yes, so actually first we're going to take a look at Monday Night Football with the Saints versus the Seahawks. Let's take a look at some of those highlights.
Got 28 yards after that catch. Winston. Oh, there's been a run to Alex Collins so far. Set up for the play action. Gino takes a shot down the sideline. DK Metcalf is in the game, and he's down the sideline.
It has been a challenging few weeks for the Seahawks as they have had to play their first backup quarterback this season. Geno Smith has had to step up into the leadership role as Russell Wilson is out. He really needs to take charge of this team if they still want a chance at the playoffs.
Yes, and the Saints have actually been having an okay season with Jameis Winston at the stead of the quarterback. But Jameis is having a lot of issues communicating with the offense, meaning that if the Saints do make it to the playoffs, they're going to have a defense-heavy team.
Got 28 yards after that catch. Winston.
They scored an 85-yard touchdown in the first half.
Yes, like you said, the Seahawks defense was great during this game because they were really taking advantage of that Saints quarterback situation. He was just not communicating with the wide receivers.
Yeah, but that wasn't the end of the Saints, though. They made a late second quarter run with Alvin Kamara to be up 10-7 going into the half.
Yes, the Saints usually have the most passing yards within the NFL, but this year they're actually one of the teams with the least.
Yeah, and it's the opposite situation with the Seahawks. Last year they had the #1 defense in the NFL, and this year they are ranked #1 for points allowed.
Yes, during the second half, Winston was just still not communicating with the wide receivers for the Saints.
Yeah, and the Seahawks defense was definitely struggling with Alvin Kamara's running ability, but when the ball was passed, the defense was getting there.
And then during the late fourth quarter, we were able to just have Jameis take the ball and end up running 15 plus yards to get those yards on for the Saints.
And unlike the Saints, the Seahawks did have a good passing game, but the rushing slowed them down and eventually ended up getting them stopped.
And then late in the fourth quarter with the defense, there were a lot of flags getting thrown onto the field, so there were some good stops for the Saints. And they ended up putting in their field goal kicker for his first ever game and made a field goal for the team.
That's awesome. With a chance to win, the Seahawks were getting stopped over and over, and the Saints defense, getting a fourth down, ended up getting the final stop and allowing them to win the game.
That's all we've got this week for Monday Night Football. Because as we appreciate the sports, we also appreciate the arts. Let's take a look at what the Irish Arts is putting on for Peter and the Starcatcher.
Irish Arts students bring a classic fairy tale to life in their fall play, Peter and the Starcatcher. The story focuses on the beginnings of Peter Pan and his miraculous journey with Molly Astor to save a wondrous treasure. The play features all sorts of stunts and includes romance, sword fights, and pirates. Emma Colley, a senior at Knoxville Catholic, plays one of these pirates.
I play Smee, and I enjoy basically just losing my mind slowly throughout the entire show.
Just like the upperclassmen, the underclassmen are also hard at work, perfecting their characters.
And it's good to see this next group of actors to grow and help them understand what's
Gracie Guess, a techie and ensemble member for the show, hopes what is backstage enhances the audience experience.
It's interesting to know what's going on both sides. It helps you to more understand what's going on stage, and you know what to expect more.
I asked both Emma and Gracie what they hoped the audience would experience and enjoy about the show.
I hope they get a laugh. I really do. It's a funny show, and it's a lot. The cast is putting in a lot of effort to make it funny.
To just have one more chance to just take this very small, intimate theater room in.
Peter and the Starcatcher will officially open on November 5th and will have 4 performances throughout that weekend. The Irish Arts students will say farewell to the Megan Burkle Performing Arts Center and will bring the spring musical to the brand new St. Gregory the Great Auditorium, which is right behind me. This will now be the new legacy of the students, and they are expectantly waiting its opening. In Knoxville, I'm Lucy Bedeau with IMN News.
The National Weather Service has been warned that there could be a potential bomb cyclone hitting the northeast coast, similar to the one that hit the west coast later this weekend. The bomb cyclone that hit the west had a record-setting rains that led to flooding in areas such as California, Washington, and Oregon. Another result from the torrential rain was mudslides that blocked some of the roads in the western United States. And the East Coast has experienced the first nor'easter of the season and is already affecting tens of millions of people. The nor'easter is said to already brought more than 5 inches of rain from Tuesday morning, and forecasters have said that it could develop into another bomb cyclone that could hit around the range from the southern Appalachian Mountains to New York City sometime today. Now let's see the update on Brian Laundrie when we head to Lizzie.
Just last week, the manhunt for Brian Laundrie, a person of interest in the investigation of Gabby Petito's death, came to an abrupt stop when his remains were found in a Florida nature reserve. The autopsy of his remains came back inconclusive for manner and cause of death. Following this discovery, the Florida Police Department admitted to what they called a costly mistake regarding the surveillance of Brian. Brian was seen leaving his parents' home on September 13th and was seen returning 2 days later. However, when he was reported missing by his parents, it was determined that they had mistaken Brian for his mother. Authorities have said that this mistake means that they were unable to question Brian before his death, making it more difficult to determine what exactly happened on the road trip with his late fiancée. Now, Morgan, what about the devastation going on in Africa?
In Mozambique, elephants are rapidly evolving due to the years of ivory poaching. Scientists have now discovered tuskless elephants have increased in the last 15 years due to hunters. During a conflict in the late 70s, about 90% of elephants in the now Gorgonza National Park area were killed to collect their tusks for money. The elephants left unscathed during this conflict were naturally tuskless. These elephants have passed on their genes to now give a vast majority of elephants no tusks. These now tuskless elephants will have to change their lifestyle, from the foods they eat to the places they live. There could also be a shift in intelligence level without tusks and an overpopulation of females. Price Darramont, a conservation scientist from the University of Victoria, said the DNA research currently being conducted on these elephants will help scientists and the public know how our society can have a major influence on the evolution of other life forms. These changes brought on by ivory poaching over the last 50 years will have major effects on all aspects of elephant life for many generations to come.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on the Irish Media Network.
Make sure to follow us on our socials for more updates on what goes on and the news coming up.
Go Irish!